What happens when one unexpected medical event changes the entire direction of your life and the person you thought you were? I'm Kiley Como, legal nurse consultant here at Shane Smith Law, and this is Mind Matters, Navigating Head Injuries and Concussions, where we explore traumatic brain injury from every angle: medical, legal, and lived experience. Today, I'm joined by Kim Jutus. Kim is a survivor of a ruptured brain aneurysm and later a severe concussion. She's a powerful advocate for brain injury survivors. She's a radio host and an author. Kim's story is one of life before brain injury, the game-changing event that altered everything in the process of moving forward while learning to live in a very different reality. In this episode, we're going to hear about what life was like before Kim's injury, what happened, and how brain injuries shaped her life since. Kim, it's really good to have you on the show with us today.
Thank you so much, Kiley. I appreciate the offer and glad to be here. Anywhere you can help raise awareness and advocate is a good thing.
Couldn't agree more. That's the whole point of the show here, is to find people like yourselves that are, powerful voices out there that can bring not just knowledge, but reality, honesty to these terrible injuries. Let's start at the bottom here, Kim. Tell our audience what life was like, a little bit about yourself, what life was like before your kind of sudden introduction to brain injury.
Well, I was a financial consultant for 25 years, sold employee benefit packages and investment products, and was an independent broker. And that's what I did coming right out of the University of Nebraska. I went right to work, and that was my job. And I wasn't quick to get married and make that change. I was kind of making my way in the world, finding my autonomy and having a really good time. And in January 9th of 1995, I was 35 years old and at the top of my game, physically, mentally, financially, socially. 35 is a really good age, don't you think?
I do. I miss it.
Yeah. Oh God. So do I, all these years later. But,
yeah.
Anyway, I was in the prime of my life. I had a physical 2 weeks before that came out. You're in perfect health. And one of the things I talk a lot about when I tell this is about miracles, or sometimes I refer to them as God winks, but things that, those last minute things that if they wouldn't have happened, the story would have ended in several spots. So January 9th, back before in 1994, I had landed the biggest case that I had ever written to go into effect January 1st. And it was obviously exciting. It was going to be the biggest commission that I had ever earned too. Nice. Ongoing, So this is important because I was financially taken care of. As we move on a minute, we're at January 9th now. And that case I closed at the end of 94, just went into effect January 1st. And I got a document after the holidays. I don't know about you, but I wasn't in a real hurry to get back to work. And I score, I had just gotten this.
Ease back in.
Yeah, I wanted to ease back in. So I kind of was going to bug out a little early. And so I told my assistant that I was going to get a paper signed at the new client's downtown, which was across town, and that I probably wouldn't be back afterward. And it was something I could have mailed or faxed or whatever, but that was my playing possum of getting out of there. And something that never happened, it really never happened. My dad called me, and he had just gotten his first cell phone for Christmas, the size of a shoebox.
Right. It was 95 after all. So yeah.
Yeah. We're talking 95. There was no social media. The computer was the updated typewriter for the secretary, at our office at the time. And, the agents, the lawyer, the whatever didn't work the computer, that was their assistance tool. And so he called me. I said what I was doing because he asked me if I wanted to have a cup of coffee. And I told him what I was doing, going downtown to get a paper signed from the new client. And he said, how about if I drive you down there and then we stop and have a cappuccino at a place down in the old market, kind of a trendy little area we have down there. And I said, okay. And so we did. He drove. And it was important because he was in the same business. And so I brought him up when I got the paper signed and introduced him to my new client. Also key, because when we left, we had driven about 2 or 3 blocks. And I felt this, like someone had buried an axe right through my head. And my arms and legs involuntarily pulled up, and I yelped. And my dad was driving. So, the couple God winks there is normally I would have been driving. And had that happened when I was driving, I wouldn't have had control of the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he was driving and he said, what's wrong? And I said, I need to go to a hospital, which you would have never heard me say in a million years. I didn't know what it was, but whatever it wasn't good. He called ahead to a doctor who had been our family doctor for 30 years, but he was also the medical examiner for one of the large insurance companies that we worked with. He dialed ahead to this doctor, said there was something wrong with me, and the doctor met us at the emergency room. And when we got there, these are some cautions I have for this time or another time, but the doctor looked me over. Now, from the moment that lightning bolt or axe was buried in my head, I don't like it when people say they have the worst headache they've had in their life, because it gives people totally the wrong impression, because everybody's had a bad headache.
Yeah.
And it ain't nothing like that.
No. If you don't mind, I'm going to interject a little bit. I don't think I was able to share my background before I got into this role as a legal nurse consultant here with Shane Smith. I was a neurosurgical intensive care unit nurse for years. And we took care of, I saw so many, what you had was a subarachnoid hemorrhage, correct?
Yes.
An aneurysm rupture.
Yes.
And audience, Kim is 100% correct. That headache is absolutely the worst headache a human being can experience, and it no other headache can compare. The worst headache you can have as a migraine sufferer doesn't compare to this headache. I'm not trying to downplay migraine sufferers and headaches. Those are terrible, but this is a universal part.
It's not even a headache. It's a head pain.
You feel like your head is going to explode. And so, go ahead, Kim.
It doesn't stop from the minute it assaults you.
Yeah.
You don't get a break.
Yes, unrelenting. And there's reasons for that, anatomical, physical reasons for that. So, continue, please.
No, good. That's why I have a hard time calling it a headache, because it's a head pain. That reverberates and is relentless and doesn't leave. But anyway, we see this doctor who really should know better, because, again, he's been my family doctor for 30 years. I had never been a hypochondriac or gone to the doctor unless I absolutely had to. He knew my history and should have known it was pretty serious that I was there. He asked the requisite questions that they're still asking today. Do you know your name? Who's the president? Whatever.
What day is it? Where are you? Yeah. All of that.
Well, at that moment, I managed to answer most of those questions, but I was just so in a fog that I was able to spit out the questions. And he says, she's having a muscle spasm in her neck. I'll prescribe some pain pills and that should take care of it. And turned me loose. And I remember standing in the pharmacy, leaning against the magazine rack, just kind of willing myself to stay alive, to be honest with you, because I knew he was wrong, but I couldn't communicate it. It's a totally different world inside there that's hard to describe, but you're not in your right mind.
Oh, my goodness. Everything inside of me right now, as a neuro ICU nurse, is just screaming, "Oh my goodness, get this woman to the ER. We gotta start subarachnoid protocol." Oh my goodness, you were hanging on for life. You were willing yourself to live. Please, yeah.
I
Please
really
continue.
was. And again, another God wink here is I owned my own home and lived alone. So if it would have been with a friend or something else, I would have wound up at home alone in my home,
Yeah.
and I would have died.
You would have, yeah.
But what happened was my dad said, "Why don't you come over to our house until the medication kicks in, and then we'll take you home?" I said, "Okay." So I went, because then all you want to do is take the pain pill and just make it stop. Just make it stop. And so when I got to their house, I started violently vomiting, and it was pounding even worse. It's no fun to be violently vomiting when your head feels like it's going to explode anyway.
Yep.
And so, this went on, and my mom wound up calling back the doctor, and by now we're getting into evening time.
Okay.
And the doctor...
So we're talking hours here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because at first, I took that medicine and I laid down for a little while, but you can't sleep. I was just struggling. And my parents, nobody knew what a brain aneurysm was or had any indication that would just come out of the blue like that, to a healthy person, just boom, out of the blue. So they called the doctor and he said, well, the pain medication is probably too strong for her. Just give her half of one next time. And so I actually went through the whole night with that repeated vomiting and head pounding. And by the time morning came, you'll know this, couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And
you'd had a stroke.
Yes. And say you're my mom for a second. This part moves really fast. I couldn't get my words out, and she was finishing my sentences for me in panic and curiosity, fear. And then all of a sudden, her mouth is moving, and I can't understand her at all. So now I can't talk, and I can't understand what you're saying anymore. And my mom said, F the doctor, we're taking her back to the hospital, They took me to the emergency room, did what they should have done in the first place, which was a CAT scan, and my bleed was there.
Yep.
Right there, to be reckoned with. So, I went 24 hours suffering, bleeding, stroking out, and then finally they knew what it was. Now... Another miracle is that it's 95. Prior to that, when this happened to people, they generally died. In fact, still a large percentage of people that have this don't make it.
The majority, yes.
The majority, yeah, still. And, something I find disappointing today from 1995 to 2026 is how many misdiagnoses there still is for this condition. They don't immediately go to the CAT scan. You can't rely on those questions is what I'm saying, because you can try it, but I was able to answer them and ready to die a half hour later. So the questions alone aren't the answer this many years later. We had a Dr. John Fox in town, and he was a renowned neurosurgeon from another state, working at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, teaching doctors how to do the clipping procedure.
Yeah.
And he had studied with a Swiss doctor, Dr. Yassergil, something like that, who was one of the pioneers of micro-neurosurgery. And as a matter of fact, created a couple of the tools, because you don't have a lot of area to work there.
Not at all.
And so the big tools you use for other surgeries don't work as effectively.
Yeah. And for our audience, I want to interject. When we're talking about a subarachnoid hemorrhage, so you have a very fine network of arteries that go right around, proximate to the center of your brain, right around near your brain stem. So if you could imagine the brain stem, very critical part of the body, you've got this ruptured blood vessel. And now you're talking to go do surgery, microvessel surgery, putting a clip to stop the bleeding around that. So yes, very delicate, very dangerous surgery. And this was in 1995. So yes, that's daunting. Please continue.
Well, I was grateful that, I was Dr. Fox's dream case. The one thing my doctor, who called everything wrong, was able to do was to know Dr. Fox was in town. And they managed to get me for Dr. Fox, who, I never got any royalties or anything for the performance, but, the room was filled. The gallery was filled with young surgeons watching Dr. Fox do this procedure on me.
Yeah.
Before we go there, this is a Monday, January 9th, that this happened. Tuesday is when it was diagnosed. At that point, I was put in a coma. And then the doctor came to my parents and said, this is a really serious thing, and she's going to have surgery or she won't make it. And it's questionable, even with making it, the degree of damage that there might be. And because the swelling is so bad, we can't do the surgery right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you a choice, since she can't speak for herself. We can either try the surgery now, but her prognosis would not be good because we've got precious little room to work. And what we'd like to try to do is give her a medication for a few days, see if we can get the swelling to come down, and thereby hope it would make her prognosis better, the outcome better. But the risk of waiting is that what already has been bleeding can burst and game over. So that was a really tough decision for a parent to have to make. For their kids.
I can't imagine.
Do you want to do it right now and try to deal with it, or do you want to have to sit there until Friday, which happened to be a Friday the 13th? And that's what my parents did. They assumed, knowing me, I would rather have bet on the more favorable consequence. And so I was then in a coma until days after the surgery. But anyway, I finally get diagnosed on Tuesday the 10th and don't have the surgery until Friday the 13th, a few days later.
Okay.
And then I don't wake up for 3 days.
I'd say days. Yeah.
And so I had the surgery, and obviously it saved my life. Thank God it was Dr. Fox, and he was proficient. He did what he needed to do, and it saved my life. But a couple interesting things happened. He almost lost me, and in that I had a near-death experience, which is maybe another story for another time, but I didn't remember it immediately because when I woke up, I didn't know if I was on foot or horseback. I didn't remember anything.
That's pretty normal.
I didn't know. Yeah. And then what the C scar looks like in your head being shaved and stuff. Well, I didn't know any of that. I'm just laying in the bed. Yeah. I have a protective Italian mother, and she wasn't letting anyone come in the room. They really couldn't come in ICU anyway,
Yeah, very restricted back then.
And when I finally got moved to a room, she wouldn't let people come in. And a couple that I was friends with, she must have just gone to the bathroom or get a cup of coffee. Mom was just gone a minute. And these friends of mine, Deb and Lou, they're not friends anymore, came in to the room and said, "Oh my God." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Have you seen yourself?" And I said, no. See, it hadn't even occurred to me yet.
Well, you had other things to worry about. Yeah, you were dealing with, so.
Yeah.
No one can fault you there.
Right. So Deb rifles through her purse and takes out her compact and opens it and puts it in my face. And I was horrified.
Yeah.
And just started to cry. I totally unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And
Stark.
I had no idea. So my mom walks in the room right that minute and kind of bitch slapped him all the way out the door, down the hallway. And
like, we don't need this right now.
No.
Yeah.
Got him out of there and
good.
Got me calmed down because I had no idea and I hadn't even thought to ask. And nobody really felt the need to explain everything in detail at that
small moment. Bits, right? You couldn't have handled all of that at once. So no, that's a good thing.
No, I had been gone, good night, Irene. I had been gone. Yeah. And so to only be back for, a few days and have no idea.
Yeah. I say for our audience, I think because we're running up against time, and I know we have a really powerful portion of your story about what happens after, but I think what another important piece of this is, with these ruptured aneurysms, just because, you have surgery, Kim had her surgery, I would bet you spent a long time in the hospital. I can recall patients being in the hospital for weeks. I mean, you're not out of the woods at that point. So there was still a lot of work to be done. I can only imagine while you were still in that hospital just to recover and heal. And you're still kind of fighting for your life at that point, even though you're through that surgery, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a lot.
What the doctor said. It was quite a while, the better part of the year. And I might mention, since we're butting up against time, that I did years later at the end of 2011, because I journaled while I was doing recovery in the first year.
Very nice.
I was at a crossroads where at the end of 2011, where I had the realization I wasn't going to be able to go back to the familiar career, but had no idea what the future was going to look like. And so I did write a book about my experience. It would be a lot different if I wrote it today, not the facts, but a
lot more raw.
Yes. And anyway,
what's the name of that book?
My website is inaflash.org. Inaflash.org. And there you'll find the book in a Flash, Miracles Here and Beyond. And that's specifically the story that I've told you with a lot of other details. It also has a list of my shows, and it's kind of the go-to for everything I did as an alternative when I was at that crossroads. Perfect
point to kind of put a period. Audience, we are going to continue our conversation with Kim in another episode. I think I would like to ask the audience, we try to get our audiences engaged in this content as much as we can. If there's anybody out there that has dealt with a ruptured aneurysm, whether yourself or a loved one, and you'd like to share your story, because they are all so unique, but it may help somebody. Again, as Kim's story here has probably perked some ears up, like, I can remember when my dad or myself went through that. Please share that in the comments. You really help folks who read through these things, listen to our content. It really gives encouragement and perhaps some ideas of your own. With that, I really would like to say, thank you so much to Kim Jutus for coming on this first episode, sharing her story, being just authentic, honest about what her life looked like before, as a high-powered financial advisor type, working all kinds of hours, moving and shaking, to going into a major life crisis and almost dying from a subarachnoid hemorrhage. Her story is such a powerful reminder that these injuries, and their recovery, they're not always linear, right? And that the impact of these brain injuries can reshape life in some very profound and I'll say some beautiful ways at times even. So I hope you come back for this next episode. It's going to be amazing. If Kim's story has resonated with you so far, as I said, we'd love to hear your comments. Your voice might be that one that helps a survivor or a caregiver feel less alone. Please, if you would, go down to the bottom of the page, like this episode, subscribe to our channel to keep up with our content, and then share this episode with someone you think might need some encouragement or would benefit from it. And remember, if you're in pain, call Shane at 980-999-9999. And join us next time as we're going to talk to Kim again about her advocacy, purpose, and the work that she's doing to raise awareness through her radio show, her books, and everything she's doing. Until then, take care.
In pain, so I call Shane. 980-999-9999. In pain, call Shane.